What is going on, everybody? This is Wrong Reel episode 575. It's a podcast for hardcore cinephiles where we tackle everything from Jean-Luc Godard to Jean-Luc Picard. And today, after basically like an 18-month absence, we have the great Becky D'Anna returning for the first time since Wrong Reel 500. And this is not a mistake that we will ever make again. But today, hopefully, we'll be remedying our oversight by doing the deep dive into one of her all-time favorite movies, Halloween. We've got a giant sequel coming out this weekend, and obviously Halloween is right around the corner. But Becky D'Anna, welcome back to Wrong Reel.
Thanks for having me. On Wrong Reel, I have celebrated 4 of my top 5 favorite movies of all time, and one of them is Halloween. And I never got to celebrate it. So I'm so excited that you're giving me the platform to do that. Halloween
so
is
your
my
top
4th
5's
favorite
what?
film.
T2, Defending Your Life, Halloween. What else makes the cut?
Broadcast News and Summer Interlude.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Not in that order. Halloween ranks 4.
Gotcha. Well,
it's a favorite horror film.
Fair enough. Well, for people out there who've been missing you and wondering what the hell you've been up to in the last year and a half, you've had some big news on a professional front as of late. So catch people up on one of your on how you and your team recently were able to spike the football with the sequel to Venom.
Oh my gosh, we've worked so hard. The pandemic's really hit the movie industry hard. I work at Sony Pictures. I've been there for 14 years. I've been a movie studio executive for 21 years. And it's been a rough time during the pandemic for exhibition, but it just makes it even sweeter that we really do feel like exhibition is finally back. Long live seeing a film in the theater, and we killed it with Venom. We decided we're finally started to release some films. We released Venom last weekend. It made more than the first film. The first film had an $80 million weekend in the US, and this film made $90 million, which is huge. And it's amazing for the pandemic. It beat all pandemic records, but it beat our own record without the pandemic, which is extraordinary. We only released it in Russia last week, but we released it in several international markets this week, and even more so in the next few weeks. And I think this weekend we made $24 million overseas, 10 million alone in Mexico. So it's super exciting. I know Bond came out this weekend and we did have a drop, but I was really rooting for Bond to do well because I want exhibition to be back. And
did you work on the marketing on Skyfall and Spectre at Sony as well?
I did. I worked on 3 Bond films. I worked at Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, and Spectre. And a lot of my closest friends in the world have worked on this recent Bond film, No Time to Die. So I was really rooting for it to kill it. It did well. We're in a pandemic still. And I also think that this film is more the audience, the demographic that's seeing this film are more risk adverse to going into the theater right now. So a little bit of an older crowd. Venom is exact audience.
It skews teen. Yeah.
Yeah. It's under 45 that wants to go to the film, wants to see movies. They're less hesitant about going into a theater. So I think that is what held No Time to Die opening weekend here, but in the US at least, it killed it internationally. International audiences are much more open to seeing a film in the theater, and I think it's only going to grow. And it's exciting for Sony because we have Resident Evil coming out.
And you got Ghostbusters like in 5 weeks, right?
Yeah, we have Ghostbusters November 19th, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City November 24th, and then we have what I believe will be the biggest movie of the year, Spider-Man No Way Home, which is December 17th. And the great thing is all 3 of those movies, Ghostbusters will hopefully bring in more family audiences than those other 2, but I do think that that's exactly the type of audience that will come out to see a film on the big screen, which is
how long of a theatrical break did Sony have? Like, how long was the window at its worst where you had nothing in the theater due to the pandemic?
Gosh, it was a long time because we just started releasing. I think Peter Rabbit was the first. I think Peter Rabbit might have been the first film we released, and it was in spring, so almost a year.
Wow.
Maybe we had a bunch of films coming out in the fall of 2020, and we were the first studio to push all of the movies, all of our film slate to 2021. And then we ended up moving it again. So a lot of these films have endured multiple release dates. So it's been
like No
rough.
Time to Die had like 4 release dates. I think they had delays even before the pandemic.
Right. I know. Well, you have to make sure that you have the audience there and that it's going to make, because these films cost a lot of money. You want to make sure that they do well as well. But yeah, I mean, Sony was sort of the leader in the fact of moving all their films. Like, we're not going to keep moving, we're going to move. And then we shifted again, but we're very careful about what films release and why. And we really took a gamble on Venom. We thought that the audience was ready, and they were. And I
you had like a last minute delay of like 2 or 3 weeks, did you not? Like when right when it seemed like the Delta variant was surging?
Yeah. Yeah, and I moved again. Well, we actually had it mid-October, and then when Shang-Chi did really well, we moved it actually 2 weeks earlier to October 1st, which was really smart bet. And it's so exciting to work at Sony Pictures because Tom Rothman runs the studio, and he's a massive cinephile. So it's just so exciting to be in meetings with him. He loves film. He loves the theatrical window. And he's been a big proponent of it throughout this, the whole time at Sony, especially during this pandemic. We really do believe that these films are meant to see in the theater, and that there is a place for them in the theater. So, and cinema's not dead. And we really celebrated when Venom did incredibly well. And we think Spider-Man's going to break all sorts of records. And Resident Evil.
Well, didn't the trailer set some record for like the first 24 hours?
Yeah, the trailer was the most watched trailer in the entire world, the history of the world ever. It was the most watched trailer ever. So that's amazing. And that obviously shows there's an audience there.
Well, quick philosophical question.
Yes.
And because when I think about a movie like Halloween, or think about all the horror films that I grew up on, almost all of them I saw either on cable, pan and scan, truncated with commercials, or I saw them on VHS. Not ideal, but there is something very intense in the media about sitting in front of like a small screen by yourself, chewing your nails, watching a horror movie. And so while I do go see movies in the theater, I saw the new Bond in the theater, I saw the new Dune in the theater, I go.
Yeah.
But oftentimes I do have negative experiences due to my fellow human beings at time. And I hear a lot about people talking about preserving the theatrical experience and so on and so forth. But I guess my hypothetical question would be, if the model ever were to shift where it was just as profitable, if not more so, to release movies without the theater. And once again, that's a giant hypothetical, but would we ever hear somebody ever say again, we need to preserve the theatrical experience? Or is it just because movies make a hell of a lot more money if they have a theatrical run first?
Well, I mean, I don't think you can make a really expensive film. I just don't think, you're saying if at home it can make as much money.
Yeah, let's say like you could buy No Time to Die for $50 at home the same day you paid $20 to see it in the theater. Like, at that point the model would change. And so like, let's say you could massage or change the numbers where in terms of viewing habits, and you could just find a way to make the numbers work, where the theatrical experience was purely an aesthetic one, an emotional one, like the idea of going to a room and sharing the experience, but there wasn't any sort of financial incentive to have the theatrical window first. Would you ever hear somebody use the sentence again, we need to preserve the theatrical
100%.
experience?
I would be one of those people. And I think Tom Rothman would be too. I love the theatrical experience. I think especially with horror films, which we're going to talk about today, I think that there's so much more rewarding being able to have a collective experience of hearing. And we'll talk about some of the best experiences I've had of being in a theater for the first time, seeing some of these horror films. Obviously, I saw Halloween on video, so you grow to love it. But I've also seen Halloween in the theater multiple times in the last 25 years, multiple times. If I have opportunity, I take it. It's so fun, even if I've seen it a million times. Los Angeles, I feel very lucky because I do feel like people are around you are really love going to the theater, and they really do preserve it. They put their phones away. I know it's not the case in a lot of other places.
I mean, in New York, even press screenings, like for Dune, they came out and said, look, we cannot show this movie without Warner Brothers is very concerned about piracy and that sort of thing, that everybody's going to turn their phones off, like not just on silent, but everybody's going to turn their phone off. The movie starts, half the room is still lit up by journalists on their fucking cell phone. These are people in theory who are going to be reviewing the movie. And it's like, well, how are you going to review the movie if you're looking at your text the whole time? And so my vision goes red, because one of my greatest pleasures in life is going to the movies. But honestly, I have better experiences at home. And when I think about like David Cronenberg and John Carpenter and all these filmmakers, almost all of like their great rich periods of the 70s and 80s, I discovered their movies at home. Like James Gunn recently said, Jaws is one of my favorite movies, but I've never seen it in the theater. So I get what people like the theatrical experience. Like when I saw Scream in 95 or 6, whenever it came out, the theater was packed. It was electric. Everybody's going berserk. And I was like, oh, I'm like a rock concert. Everybody's really vibing on like the crowd energy. But if I'm trying to get absorbed into Denis Villeneuve's Dune, having a row of journalists on their phone takes me out of it and actually
I would
ruins
think
the immersion.
I agree. And I think there's like a special layer in hell for people that take their phones out during the movie theaters and talk during it and want to ruin it. I hate those people, but and that's unfortunate. I'm not sure why they didn't do better job about policing those.
But for me, it's like if you turn it, my hard-nosed approach would just be, if your phone comes on, no warning, you're out, no excuses. I don't care if you have a family in the hospital, you're expecting a baby. If you have an emergency, don't go to the movies. Like take your emergency outside. I know that's harsh, but people went to the movies for many, many decades without having their alerts about the outside world.
Exactly.
And so,
yeah. But honestly, when I go to the movies, sometimes I'll go to the movies and I'm by myself. I still think it's a more powerful experience than seeing the movie at home. I just like seeing on a huge screen and having the lighting be, down and really just for me, I put my phone away. That's the time, 2 hours or 2.5 hours or 90 minutes of uninterrupted.
It's good for your brain. Yeah.
It's
good for your brain. It's healthy to have to focus for 2 hours on something.
I agree.
And I guess the first Halloween movie I saw in the theater was H2O. And we've talked about this before, but I went to a theater by myself in Charlottesville, Virginia, and it was totally empty. And at one point, for whatever reason, I just looked over my shoulder and I thought I saw somebody in the very back row in the middle. I was like, that person wasn't there when the movie started. Like, who's this fucking psychopath? This person's here to kill me. So the whole movie, I'm nervous about being killed while watching this movie, far more nervous than I am about like the movie itself. And at the very end of the movie, when the lights came on, I was walking up the aisle, it was a garbage can that was sticking up behind a chair. But just by being in that room and unfamiliar like an unfamiliar setting, it did amplify the horror. So that was a great experience. When I went to see Midsommar, I was in the front row center by myself, and everybody else was behind me. So no distractions by phones. And I got completely absorbed by Midsommar. So I do love a great theatrical experience. They're just incredibly rare because human beings, on the whole, chew with their mouth open and walk with their knuckles dragging the ground, and they don't know how to behave in public.
I'm so sorry that you have such bad experiences. I really do truly feel lucky to be Los Angeles. I think I've had maybe 1 or 2 bad experiences in like 20 years. And I'm really honestly.
What about the new Bev?
I like the new Bev.
In the late 90s,
the new Bev
was like a great place for people just to stumble in with all their earthly belongings, and they would just start rooting through them throughout the whole movie.
That's so 20 years ago, JV. Though.
It is 20 years ago, but that's when I think of the new Bev, I think of sticky floors and plastic bags.
I remember you losing your mind at the New Beverly with me once. And I'm like, oh God, Jamie's going to blow. Jamie's going to get arrested. Yeah. But I mean, they used to have people that, homeless men would stream in and carry their bags and stuff.
It was a $5 double feature. It was a great way to get off the street for like 6 hours. If you're having a double feature of like Barry Lyndon and like the Duelists, you could stay in there all goddamn day.
Yeah. It was a very charming time for the New Beverly, but now it'd be so hard to even get tickets. Just their whole programming gets sold out, and you really are surrounded by film fans. I just actually went to see Terminator 2 Judgment Day at the New Bev. I've never seen it at the New Bev. I've seen it tons of times in the theater, and then, hundreds and hundreds of times on video. But it was so exciting to see it at the New Bev surrounded. And actually, what was really exciting was there were some people there, because you forget that the film is not a new movie. There were several people there who I could tell were seeing Terminator 2 for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, the movie came out 30 years ago almost. So a lot of people, young kids have no idea what the hell that movie is.
I know, but it was just fascinating because I would hear people around me gasp for, oh, what? And it was actually very exciting to be, wow, this person is seeing this, the wonders of the T1000 for the first time. It was really exciting, obviously on a whole other level to hear that. And then also just to enjoy it in a crowd of people who just love T2. And the other thing is I saw seeing retro films. I saw Defending Your Life at the Arrow in several months ago. And it was jam-packed people. It was like, I don't know, I think it seats 342 people, just an Albert Brooks love fest of just jammed with people. It was like my first like big pandemic screening where you could just go back and like you kind of wear your mask still, but it was still amazing. And it was just the laughter, roaring of laughter, and just love for Albert Brooks. I mean, there's nothing like that experience. So,
well, I envy you for your audiences. New Yorkers go to the movies in droves. I mean, we are a movie going population. We got so many goddamn great movie theaters. And so it's a strong movie going population. But New Yorkers also like to just claim their own things. Like, oh, that's my restaurant. That's my table at my restaurant. That's my dry cleaners. Like, no, they're not yours. You go to them. And so everybody in New York just thinks that the room is their living room. And so they just like, they'll take a phone call in the middle of a movie. Like, hey, what's up?
No.
Like, yeah, I'm at the movies. And it's like, anyways, I don't want to get too off topic. Let's focus on something cool.
Yes.
Halloween, 1978, John Carpenter, for a long time, I think until Blair Witch, the most successful independent horror movie. And then Blair Witch got exceeded by the 2018 sequel / soft reboot, however you want to describe it. The 2018 Halloween then replaced it. But today we're going to talk about why the classic remains a classic, why it still works more than 40 years later, how we first discovered it, everything we love about it. And we'll make some predictions for Halloween Kills. And at the very end, we'll talk about Becky's love and or hate for all the various movies from the franchise over the years. Let's just start big picture. Wind the clock back. Very first time you saw Halloween, what age, what format? Give us some nostalgia. Give us some memories.
So I saw it for the first time when I was 9 years old, but actually I walked in during the end of Halloween. My father was watching it on TV, and I walked in on the scene where Laurie Strode's friend is strewn out on the bed with the Judith Meyer headstone. Nance, I think, Annie Brackett. And she sort of laid out, and I walked in and I was like, what is this? It was so creepy.
I still feel that way. And I've seen the movie many times. Like,
I know. And
why?
And my dad was watching on TV, and I walked in and I was like, this is awesome. And that's right where the part where Laurie Strode discovers all her, her friends have been murdered. It's really, it's just such an extraordinary part of the film. So I just immediately was like, this is so terrifying, but I love it. And so I sat down and I watched the rest of the film. And then I think my dad agreed to watch the movie all over again with me the next day. And then I became hooked. I was obsessed with, I wanted to see Halloween 2. And then I just got hooked on horror films when I was 9 years old. I ended up watching I fell in love with Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which was like I was 9 years old in 87 when that came out. So actually,
can you sing us the Dokken theme song?
Dream Warrior.
Oh, you gotta hit those high falsetto notes.
I can't sing like Don Dokken.
Dream Warrior. It's like,
you totally can. He is. He's got a great voice. I've actually seen Dokken in concert several times. I'm a huge Dokken fan, by the way. But I fell in love with Dokken really the first time I ever heard their music was from Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And then they had a great album that came out that year. But I just became obsessed with horror film, Children of the Corn, watched the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And then I ended up watching all the Halloween movies that subsequently as they came out after that, 4 and 5. But I never my parents let me see whatever they wanted to. I never had a babysitter growing up. So they would just take me to whatever movies they wanted to see. So I had seen some horror before that, and really
that's the best way to do it. Brady Snells talks about that all the time on his podcast. So in the early 70s, when he was a kid, his parents would just take him and his siblings to see anything and everything. But as a result, as a little kid, he got to see the best of early 70s American cinema. He didn't necessarily always understand it or appreciate it, but it had this like massive, profound impact on just his palate and his taste in movies, because parents who take their kids to interesting cinema end up raising cinephiles.
Exactly. Yeah. And so my parents, and also I've had some like blind spots throughout, like that, like my parents were interested in certain types of films. I wouldn't have seen them, and then I would have to seek them out in my 20s. But my parents really loved science fiction, and they loved horror film, and they loved drama, but they took me to everything. I saw Fatal Attraction, I think when I was like 10 or something.
I saw it in the theater as well, because I snuck into it with my buddy Nick Brown.
My parents just took me. I was like, whoa. So, sometimes
you're like, I don't
know if I should be seeing this, but yeah, I just absolutely love film. films. And so it was no problem for them to let me watch Halloween. And I actually ended up watching a lot of these films over and over by myself. Like I remember watching Halloween 2 by myself. And there's that scene with the cat outside where the guy's like looking at the lights in the back of the hospital, and the cat just jumps out. I remember being so scared, like I freaked out by that jump scare, and I was by myself. So I loved being scared. So it was great.
Yeah, I think fear is a wonderful, beautiful thing, especially when you know nothing's really going to get you. And I've had a lifelong fascination with it ever since I saw Ghost Story in the theater. Might be my first horror movie ever. I think I was 5. It's either that or Salem's Lot on TV, but I was so young, I don't know which came first. But some kids, they see horror and it just affects them in horrible ways. And they know, I don't like this and I don't ever want to see a horror movie ever again. And some kids see horror and they're like, more please. And they just want to get immersed in it. And so, yeah, I think you and I had very similar experiences. I guess for me, Halloween, I don't know how old I was when I first got exposed to it, but I saw it pan and scan, cable. And I mean, somewhere between like age 5 and 7 thereabouts, because I saw that, The Thing, and The Fog all around the same time, but I'm not quite sure in what order. Mm-hmm. But that opening credit sequence and the music still is one of the all-time greats. And that whole opening sequence from his point of view as a teeny tiny kid, even then it had a massive impact. But of course it was on TV. So they cut all the wonderful, beautiful nudity out of there, which kind of changes the scene. It's some famous Playboy playmate from like 1978 or 79 who appeared as his sister. So I didn't get to see it in its entirety. But also, quick side note, speaking of censorship, I have to pause for a second to bash the shit out of Amazon, because when in preparation for this video, I wanted to rewatch the movie. So I rented it on Amazon, started watching it, and I noticed like 10 minutes in, suddenly the movie just mysteriously faded to black at one point. I was like, I don't remember that. Then it happened again. And then it happened again. And I was like, oh my God, they've accidentally gotten a transfer for television with commercial breaks. And then at the very end, during my favorite sequence of the movie, where after Michael has vanished and you get the bone chilling music and you're basically getting all these still shots of all the different locations around the neighborhood, one of the most eerie, atmospheric, and just simple and elegant horror sequences imaginable. It went into this weird split screen thing where it was showing that up top and it was showing the credits going by really fast. Wow. And then it ended before it even finished showing the still frames. I was like, this is on fucking Amazon. Like, how many millions of people are watching it for the first time and getting this shitty experience? So everybody leave negative reviews, but immediately I was like, I guess it's time to buy the Blu-ray. So I bought the Blu-ray. It just arrived today. And now I'm a happy boy again, but I could not believe that Amazon had that crappy version of the movie available. And that's the only version, whether you buy it or rent it, that's the only one they've got.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh. I'm so bummed. I have it over there. I wanted to show it to you. I have the whole Halloween box set.
Oh, go grab it. I can cut it out as you,
do you want to go grab it?
Oh, sure. Grab it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, lay it on me.
So Halloween box set. This doesn't include, and I have it separate as a separate Blu-ray, but I don't have it. This doesn't include the 2018 Halloween movie, but this is all the films up to the last 2 Rob Zombie movies. So Halloween, it has 2, 3, 4, 5, The Curse, H2O, and then Resurrection, and then the 2 zombie movies.
Resurrection, otherwise known as the Halloween that must not be named.
No, yes, the complete collection. But I guess it's not complete because it says 15 discs. But because I have the 2018 David Gordon Green. I also have the Nightmare on Elm Street collection.
Beautiful. Well, it's funny with the Halloween franchise. I know there are a lot of people out there who really love the franchise and they love the full narrative and they love all the ins and outs. The older I get, the less I care about any of them. I'm happy just every time I want the Halloween experience just to watch the John Carpenter movie.
Yeah.
Because it's so simple and effectively told. And you have that, I had to look up the technical information, but the way he shot it with that classic Panavision Panaflex with the anamorphic lens, it's just that classic John Carpenter look. And it was shot for like $300,000 or something just non-existent, but they've never been able to equal it, never been able to surpass it. And the more I watch the Halloween franchise, the less I like the rest of them, the more I like the first. And I might not even see Halloween Kills this weekend. I might just instead just rewatch the original John Carpenter film, because I guess help me understand what is it about the film that makes it so effective, because it's so influential and so many plot details have become tropes that have often been imitated why does this one surpass the others to such a degree? And why do people keep coming back to it 43 years later?
Because it's so beautifully shot, and the way that the camera sort of visually tells a story. And I think also it's just such a simple premise. And this guy kills his sister. It goes into sanitarium, releases 15 years later, and then goes on a rampage and kills a bunch of babysitters. But it's very simple and easy to follow. But it's just, I think it really is how suspenseful and haunting it is. And I also think the fact that it doesn't really have a lot of blood. I think what has always drawn me to, and what really scares me, and when I see horror films, is what my imagination can conjure up is far more horrifying than what I could actually see. And I love the fact that they really, John Carpenter takes you through this film, and Dean Cundey, who also photographs it, just like it's very slow burning. Like you really get to know these characters, and they really ratchet up the tension over and over. I mean, you watch Annie Brackett make popcorn and spill butter on her, go to the laundry room.
It's a sexy bit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Stripping down the kitchen. Yeah.
You're actually watching her walk to the laundry. Even when Jamie Curtis's character, Laurie Strode, at the very end is going to the house, that's just a long sequence of her, like, what's in that house, what she's going to discover. And you don't really have that payoff of like what she's going to discover until then. So it's just that fear of just like, oh, what she's going to discover, and walking across the street. It's such a long walk. It feels like a long walk. But I think, and also just all the things that Dean Cundey does with shadows and lighting, it's amazing. Like the scene where Laurie Strode is in the hallway, and after she's discovered her friends have been murdered, and then she's just horrified, and then you see that
apparition just emerging from the shadows. Yeah, it's classic.
Shape. It's so haunting. It's so gorgeous. And even at the end, I mean,
speaking of shape, I just learned that the term shape apparently has been around for centuries, but it used to be used in the context of hang on. This is what happens when you take too many notes, is that you can't find the notes you need when you want to find, but it's like a term from like the 1600s for like apparitions and spirits and that sort of thing. And so there's even like books written about it. But the term's been around for here it is. The word shape was used by the Salem witch trials by judges to describe specters or spirits of the accused doing mischief or harming another person.
Yeah, like they refer to spirits and demons as shapes, I guess. So, I mean, that's really cool. I never realized that until recently when I started doing research for this film as well. That he got it from something like that, from like the Salem witch trials, or and even before that, I guess it's just that's around the same time. So, the other amazing scene is near the end, where I just absolutely love is when Laurie thinks it's over, and he's behind her, and then you see him like slowly the best sit-up get up, in movie history. And then the snap of his head.
He doesn't skip ab day. He just sits right up.
I know, and it's like, and again, it's the shadow too of when he gets up, and then you see him behind her. It's amazing. And it's so funny. I was watching it again last night, and I'm in my house. I've seen this movie hundreds of times, and there was like a little like sound that happened in the other room, and I jumped. There was twice where I jumped close to the end, where I'm like, how am I jumping when I've seen this movie hundreds and hundreds of times? Because you're so in tune with the sound and what's happening, that anything else that happens around you just makes you startles you.
I think it's one of the best examples where you need that perfect synthesis of image and sound. Because I know in an early test screening, when John Carpenter showed it to some exec or producer who worked on the movie, and it didn't have the score yet, and like, this movie's a failure. And then he went and spent a couple of days writing the score, like, oh, it's a masterpiece. And so you really can't separate the two. And I mean, I don't know if it was like just like pure dumb luck or wild creativity, but he somehow just cooked up this very simple, elegant score in 5/4 time, and helps that you have a father who's a music teacher who teaches you what 5/4 time is. And when you're a very young kid, but that 5/4 tempo is what gives it that incredible sense of urgency. 4/4 it'd be a little bit more rhythmic and a little bit more pleasurable to listen to, but 5/4 just makes you a little bit more unsettled. And so now finally found the note. I was looking for the name of Sandy Johnson. Sandy Johnson played Michael Myers' sister, in case anybody is a Playboy historian, whatever the case might be. But so it's the sound and image coming together. So you don't need big special effects. You don't need a big giant budget. You really just need some beautiful shadows and you need some beautiful music, and both of which are pretty cheap. And so once again, they shot this movie for nothing. And half the time you see Michael, it's not even Michael. It's like, it's Deborah Hill, the co-screenwriter, standing in for him, or whether it's like the little kid with the clown costume, that's Deborah Hill's hand reaching for the knife and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. It's funny just how many people actually play Michael Myers over the course of the film.
Yeah, I think it's like 6 people, because I think so Nick Castle is the one that is his USC buddy, who is got paid $25 a day to be him. Then there's, when he gets unmasked, it's Tony Moran, and they cast him because John Carpenter felt like Michael Myers needed to look angelic. And so he wanted.
And he looks like a Cro-Magnon to me.
I know. I think they like this girl. It's so funny the way they shot him. It looks like he's kind of deformed, but he's not.
Yeah, like he came out of the womb and hit his head on something.
Yeah, and then there's Deborah Hills, who's the kid's hand,
and she's also standing in silhouette across the street when the little kid looks out the window and just sees Michael Myers standing there. One of the best shots of the movie. That's Deborah Hill.
Oh yeah. And then there's the stuntman, which Jim Winburn, and then Tommy Lee Wallace was who played him for the closet scene.
Yeah, which is incredible. Well, let's get down into like the real meat of it. And I think one of the most interesting parts is how you have 2 screenwriters working on this, handling different characters. And so you got John Carpenter handling Loomis and all this stuff about evil has escaped again, like all this kind of very dramatic lingo that he's using. But also, come home. Yeah, but also, what is it when he says when he finally escapes? Oh, when he escapes the hospital, the evil is gone from here.
Evil is gone. I love the way he talks. Loomis is the best, and I love Donald his Pleasance. 2 monologues.
Well, also his monologues for me, they rank up there with like the monologue about the Indianapolis and Jaws, and they're incredible. But then you got Deborah Hill writing all the dialogue for the girls.
Yeah.
And the girls, you just fall in love with all of them. Just like the way they're talking shit when they're like, Michael Myers is just kind of driving around the neighborhood and like, can he take a joke and blah, blah, blah. But like
speed kills.
Yeah. But like all those girls, it's so wonderfully authentic. And
it's authentic.
These are teenage girls and you just believe it. Whereas so many writers don't know how to write for a younger voice.
Yeah. I just realized I said totally, like PJ Souls. Totally. Yeah. And actually that's one of the biggest reasons why I think this film endures. And one of the reasons why I love it so much is because you really care about these characters. They're very empathetic. And also these girls feel like real girls. Like I love, one of my favorite scenes is when they're in the car, when Annie Brackett and Laurie Strode are in the car talking about the dance and what they're going to wear to the dance, and that Laurie has a crush on Ben Tramer, and she's like,
R.I.P. Ben Tramer.
Yeah, I know, poor Ben Tramer. But it's just, it feels really authentic, even about school, like when they're walking back from school and the way they talk and they really care about each other and they playfully tease each other. It feels real. And it's something that I think, Friday the 13th didn't get right at all. They're just like, oh, okay, these girls are just we got the formula is girls get killed if they have sex, blah, blah, blah. But these girls are real people. Like you really feel like they could be your friends. So you care about them. And they didn't get murdered because they had sex. They got murdered, because they weren't paying attention. But some of them Laurie Strode's so focused on
that's what Carpenter and Hill said. They weren't trying to create all these tropes.
Yeah.
They just became tropes later on when they were imitated again and again and again. But Laurie Strode just happens to be observant. She's kind of bookish, kind of nerdy. She's got her eyes open, whereas the other girls are smoking weed and drinking beer and having a good old time.
Yeah, they're just, focused on their boyfriends and other things. Maybe they're not as paying
Carpenter
attention,
apologized for killing the sexual revolution, and he said it was not his intention.
It wasn't, and it was. Deborah Hill talks about it too, and sometimes they literally have said this on so many commentary tracks of the film and multiple interviews for the last 35 years, so 40 years. So you can never go back and be like, oh, well, this is why they did it. They didn't intentionally do that. I think people saw it as a formula. Oh, okay, well then this is how we replicate it. This is how we copy it. That if you have sex, you die. Blah blah blah. But they didn't.
Are there any famous exceptions where there's a strong female protagonist who just bones everybody, but still lives and fights, lives to fight another day?
Well, doesn't Jamie Lee Curtis has sex in the first opening scene of The Fog, right? Doesn't she live?
True. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I think so. Yeah, I mean,
So
she gets picked up and
boom.
they get it on. So yeah, there you go. John Carpenter breaking his own tropes
Yes,
with his next
exactly.
movie. So I want to talk about one thing that I
Yeah.
feel like has been lost sight of in the decades since this movie, where everybody loves the shape, looking big, tall, hulking, scary, just the silhouette who can, like, you know, smash your head through a wall or impale you to a wall with a knife, whatever the case might be. But there's a weirdness to him in this first one that I think has been forgotten entirely. Like the fact that like the first half of the movie is just him driving around town and like bumping into people, almost like a prankster or a trickster. He seems, now he's depicted almost like this like unthinking brute, just kind of wandering into things, whereas he seems to have more of like a plan that he's putting into effect. Like we mentioned before, how like the headstone of his sister gets placed on the bed with Annie, and that's fucking weird. That's somebody who's planning things out. Or when he puts on the sheet with the glasses and comes after PJ Souls, and it's like, this guy, even if he doesn't seem to be the funniest guy on the planet, has a devilish sense of creativity or humor. And do you think this stuff is almost kind of too weird that it wouldn't translate in subsequent adaptations? But how come Michael Myers' personality has changed so much in the decades since?
Well, I mean, I think those are just minor moments in the first film. I think that, I mean, it's Deborah Hill's idea to put the ghost sheet on and the glasses. And I think maybe there's something interesting. I mean, he's not Freddy Krueger.
Like, I
I mean,
don't
Freddy,
necessarily like that scene, but
yeah.
it's a different aspect of his personality
Oh yeah, it
that is
just it
completely
does seem
vanished.
it doesn't seem like it falls. I mean, this guy hasn't spoken a word since he was 6 years old. So, and he's mute. And then there's like scene where he kills Bob, and then like he's hanging and he looks at him and he's observing his work. It's an interesting note of it. It gives him like a little bit more layers, I guess. But I don't know. I think it's interesting they did it. Throughout the rest of the films, I mean, I think he's pretty consistent. His
But like just
personality.
the fact that he's driving around and following everybody, he's following Laurie and he's following Loomis, he's following, it was like he's really scoping out the town, which for
Yeah.
me suggests more intelligence and
Oh
more
yeah.
thinking, as opposed to just, I'm the ominous shape and I wander into a room and I just destroy everything.
Oh, I don't think like, yeah, I think that he's intelligent. I mean, Jason seems to me like this big monster that just
Yeah,
like,
he's become Jason over time, which I don't
yeah.
like.
Yeah. But Michael always I mean, I think
And he's
one of the
gotten too
reasons.
big. He's not that big in the first movie. He's a kind of just a normal sized guy.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think Michael just I think the reason, one of the things that works, but a lot of people hate, is in Halloween 2 when it's revealed that Michael Myers is the brother of Laurie Strode. You do go back and think about, oh well, I guess some of this stuff makes sense. Like, why would he be watching her following her and seeing where she is and going to her house, and like there's a reason why he's like following her.
I wish all the continuity from 2 onward could just be completely erased, because for me, he's more mysterious and more mythic.
Oh yeah.
With that, all that. Once again, it's why I like the first movie quite a bit. And I like the idea of number 3, where they're trying to do something different, making it more like an anthology series. But of course, it was a failure, so they went back to Michael. It's why I really have no use for any of the sequels at all. I don't need any continuity or any of that story, or like all the family trees and the revenge and all that kind of.
Oh yeah.
I honestly hate all of it. I just like the fact that he's just this elemental force that just happens upon Laurie and her friends.
Yeah, what I love the most about him is that he was born evil. There's no backstory for that. He's just evil, and I love that. I think that's one of the most powerful elements of the film.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
I'm just saying that one thing that they did set up in the second one sort of helps if you think about, well, why is he, it doesn't make a piece, but makes sense there, but it prohibits the rest of the films where there's this whole family tree. Like he's after Laurie's daughter, and then he's after her cousins. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like they can't get out of this. But actually the 2018 version retconned everything after 1. So it's not his sister. So it's really just 1. And then he gets released he breaks out of the hospital, and he's that's it. Like that, and then Lori's just has dealt with the fact that all her friends have been murdered, and look what she's become. So that's a really interesting take that David Gordon Green did. And Danny McBride. So in that way, did you see the last one?
I did, but it's funny how it, as depicted in the 2018 film, it's like they wanted to have their cake and eat it too, where if somebody breaks out of prison and kills 2 or 3 people and then they disappear, they're not going to be this like larger than life, like, you know, kind of, I guess, urban legend all these decades later. It's like they wanted to have all the history of all the killings from all the movies, but at the same time, only have the continuity of the first. Like, well, you kind of got to go one way or the other. I didn't entirely buy the idea that just from that one night, that some people are still obsessed with them all these decades. I was like, yeah, there are a lot of murderers out there who kill 1 or 2 people. Like, come on, let's get serious.
Well, I think Lori, I mean, that her 3 of her friends died that night. I think that can affect you. And if
she's friends with that guy, or I feel like 2 of her friends died. I think she knows the guy.
Oh, Bob. Well, it's still nice and some guy she knows.
Yeah, but
she might have known him. We don't know that
we don't know if they were bosom buddies, but we know that she is friends with the 2 girls. But yeah, the guy.
But one of your friends being brutally murdered would be, you know, traumatic. I can't imagine 2, and then their boyfriend too. So I can imagine that she would have that trauma. So I like that they explored that. But yeah, it is interesting of going back to just the first one. Michael Myers definitely doesn't seem like a brute that's just, oh, I'm just going to murder. Like he's very particular, like the fact that he goes back to Haddonfield. And then he has to figure, and they explain a lot of stuff too, that you think about, well, he doesn't have any money. What is he going to wear? Like he kills a mechanic to get his overalls, and then his coveralls. And then what's he going to eat? He eats a dog, because he doesn't have money.
How he knows how to drive.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Well, how does he drive? Well, maybe somebody around here gave him lessons.
Well, having Donald Pleasence in the first movie just gives the movie so much more, not necessarily like artistic credibility, but he's such a world-class performer that he elevates the material in a lot of ways, where he's got a lot of other actors who are relatively inexperienced, but suddenly you've got Ernst Stavro Blofeld himself walking in, and he just raises the game of the entire thing. And like I said, with that whole, I met him 15 years ago, it's really spooky, eerie stuff. And it's just a guy talking. And also he's kind of a devilish little trickster as well. Like that one weird random bit where he's worried about a murderer on the loose, but he still takes time out to scare a couple of kids and kind of smile. Yeah, it's like, you're a fucking weirdo too. Like, no wonder Michael's so strange. He's been learning it from you.
He's got motivation though. He's trying to save this kid.
I guess, but he could have like, be off. Like he could have just.
Oh yeah, just get out of here. Or yeah, as just an adult figure, he could just be like, "I'm sorry, you need to get out of here." Sure.
Yeah.
But he kind of devilishly smiles when the little boy runs off.
Yeah, he's a little prankster. Yeah.
Yeah. But I always like, what's up with like Pleasance telling Lee Brackett, the sheriff, like, they'll see him on every street corner. So don't tell anyone. They're like, I'm like, don't we want people to see him on every street corner? I would want to know if an escaped mental patient was running wild. I would probably not have my kid go trick-or-treating and have them stay in the house. So I'm not sure what's happening there. And also it's so funny because in the second film, he does see him on every street corner, which is how Ben Tramer dies.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the insane asylum, that's one of my favorite horror memories as a kid, because the first time I saw it, either I was sent to bed or I left the room, but I didn't make it to the end the first time around, but I did make it through the insane asylum sequence. And there's nothing more classic than just a dark and stormy night, raining. They pull up and you see patients just wandering around the headlights. Oh, yeah. The music kicks in. And I love how she's like, since when did they just let them wander around? It's like, it's so spooky. And it probably costs $5 to shoot that sequence. But one of my only grievances now, though, about like 4K resolution on TVs and that sort of thing, when Michael Myers' hand comes down and cracks the window, I think they taped a wrench and covered it with like skin color.
Sort of see it.
Now you can see it. Whereas once upon a time, it was just like a silhouette of a hand cracking the window, and it was so effective. And now, too much resolution can spoil the effect.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you're wait, he's got something in his hand to break that. How would he get that?
And the way he leaps up onto the roof of the car, and the way that you get that weird little sound effect, it's so beautiful and so effective. And once again, it's like, this is a master storyteller exercising his craft in ways that I think the 2018 movie can't even begin to hold a candle to.
I mean, they can't even touch it. It's that scene. I wish I'd mentioned it earlier. One of my favorite scenes is it's so effective. And it's, like I said, bone chilling. The white gowns against the darkness and the rain. And she's like, wait, since when? Oh my God. It's just so such a scary image. And it's so creepy. I love that scene. And it was really raining.
Yeah. So, I did not know that it was actually raining, but I guess with $300,000, it's they probably couldn't afford rainmakers, but for $300,000,
no, it was pouring rain.
47 million. I'm reading here, and they said in 2008, if you adjust for inflation, that'd be the equivalent of $150 million. So not a bad return on investment. And I love how this wasn't necessarily the work of like some auteur who set out to create the all-time great horror movie. He basically was hired to do this thing called The Babysitter Murders. And they had an idea for the title, that they wanted to have it set around Halloween. But how it's amazing how up until this time, despite the fact that movies have been around for 80 years at that point, no one had ever decided to make a spooky movie around this holiday. So it's just like all these wonderful forces just kind of came together, and that you have an actress who's the daughter of like one of the all-time great horror icons, Janet Leigh. It's just one of the things where the stars were aligned and you just had all these perfect ingredients all coming together.
Yeah. And it's all just a matter of everybody that had their hands in it. Like it was Deborah Hills' idea they thought it was a great idea to cast Jamie Lee Curtis as Janet Leigh's daughter, like thought that'd be really marketable. And Irwin Yablans, who's the producer behind this film, I mean, there's so much stuff that he attributed to this film. I mean, he came up with the poster with the knife and the hand too. He came up with the name of the movie. One of the best
posters I've ever seen. Like, we've had this debate before because sometimes, the question is, are they marketing materials or are they works of art? And for me, if a poster is a great work of art, sometimes it's the first time you ever get even exposed to the idea of a movie. And it's a perfect first handshake with the audience. Like, this is what we're doing. This is what we stand for. And it's such a great teaser. And I feel like, I don't know who designed the poster for the original Halloween, but they get it. Like it's not just a bunch of floating heads with Photoshop. This is a beautiful painting that's so evocative of the emotions of the film.
Agree. And so Yablans came up with that, but to talk a little bit about Yablans, because I think he's really interesting in the fact that how Michael Myers, the British distributor, came into it. I know a lot of this is history, but it's so interesting. It's that, so like John Carpenter's agent showed Irwin Yablans Assault on Precinct 13, which was called Siege at the time.
Which fucking rules, killer movie.
Yes. And Yablans like was really impressed by that. Wow, this film was made for such a small amount of money. Like, let's do it. And then Assault didn't do, so he came on for it and it didn't do so well. So then they took it to Europe and they went to it, and Yablans seeked out this British distributor named Michael Myers. And so John Carpenter named Michael after this British distributor who helped make his movie do really well, because Michael Myers got the film into film festivals and then it got noticed in Europe and it did really well. And then Yablans came up with the idea when he was thinking about working with him again, because he thought he was so talented and could make films so cheaply. And so he came up with the idea of a film starring babysitters and then to be set on Halloween night. And essentially he just told them that it just had to be lots of suspense. And he wanted a staircase because he said that like Exorcist and Psycho, they had a staircase, no blood. And he also, it was Irwin Yablans' idea to cast Donna Pleasance as well. So, I mean, he had a tremendous influence on this film.
So where does Someone's Watching Me come into play? Because I feel like this is kind of the weird, forgotten John Carpenter movie where in 1978, he got a lot of practice making this made-for-TV thriller where he says, basically for him, he's like, I need to know how to just pace myself and take care of myself while delivering a project on budget, on time. And I've never heard a single John Carpenter fan in my life even bring up the fact that he basically got to have like a dry run with this Lauren Hutton film before he then applied a lot of those techniques to Halloween.
Yeah, Someone's Watching Me was right before Halloween. That's a movie also he fell in love with Adrienne Barbeau on that film, which is crazy.
So. Yeah,
I know. Well, I mean, he was living with Deborah Hills. She was his girlfriend, and they were like living together. And he fell in love with Adrienne Barbeau.
Adrienne Barbeau is an actress with like giant bazumbas, whereas Deborah Hills like this wonderful creative writer and producer. Do you want the brain or do you want the beauty? It's like you gotta pick one or the other.
Yeah, but it's crazy because he told Adrienne Barbeau that he loved her, and right before they started filming Halloween, and then he told Deborah Hill what happened too. So that's like they were going through like a divorce. They were dating. I mean, they were still together. Like all the crew knew they were together. They were living together. They had the wrap party at their house. But he was in love with Adrienne, and then he ended up proposing to Adrienne right after they shot Halloween. But I mean, Deborah Hill's a consummate professional. She killed
like
killed it on the film.
Gail Ann Hurd and James Cameron while making The Abyss. I mean, sometimes if you're having a big nasty divorce in the middle of making a movie, I don't know, I guess maybe it forces you to really focus on making the movie.
Exactly. But Deborah Hill was amazing. And also that he ended up doing a bunch of his films with Deborah Hill after this. So they have an amazing relationship, just like Gail and Hurd. But when Yablans decided, that was the coolest thing, is when Yablans decided to do the movie with John. John's only agreements was, he said 4 things. He wanted to do the score. He wanted to get his name in the title. He wanted final cut. And then he wanted Deborah Hill, his girlfriend, to co-write and produce it. And then she was his script supervisor on Assault on Precinct 13. And then and Irwin's like, yeah, if you can make it for $300,000, let's do it.
Well, I think a lot of times people overlook, everybody assumes that horror films and slash films automatically are contemporary and so on and so forth, but just how few movies had been in a contemporary setting prior to this. I mean, obviously Psycho is modern day, and you've got films like Black Christmas, and you got a lot of Italian giallo, most of which were not even seen by Americans. But after this, yeah, and of course you had The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, but like you had, for a long time, it was like Edgar Allan Poe adaptations by Roger Corman or Hammer horror, where it was Gothic, it was very romantic, it was 19th century, you know, Dracula and Frankenstein and all that kind of stuff. And it seems like after Halloween, people are, I mean, it's hard to think of another Gothic setting for many, many years until like Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula or something like that. But like this movie really just kind of obliterated old-fashioned horror movies for a good long time.
Yeah, exactly. And it helped shape into modern horror. But the fact that this person could come into your house, absolutely, that's really scary.
Like none of us are going to spend the night in a castle anytime soon and have a ghost rise above the floor. But you can be hanging out watching Howard Hawks's version of The Thing on TV, and suddenly this fucking psycho's coming through your window with a sickle looking to eat your intestines.
Yeah, and there's no supernatural. It's not like The Blob or anything, or like you're going to seek something out.
You just said supernatural. So my question for you is, at a certain point in this first movie, does Michael Myers transcend the mundane and become supernatural? Because I feel like you can read this movie one of two ways or a couple of ways, but like little boy goes to an insane asylum. He's a real life, just crazy person. He gets out of jail, gets out of the insane asylum, and goes off and does crazy things. But it seems like by the end of the movie, he has become the shape. He is supernatural. He is like a being almost of like pure shadow who cannot be killed by mundane means. Is this movie purely grounded from start to finish? Or for you as a viewer, just from your own subjective point of view, does it become a supernatural horror film by the end?
Yeah, I don't think of it as supernatural, but I think that it does, honestly, at the end, because he gets shot 6 times, he falls off the balcony and he's able to get up. He's also stabbed repeatedly with the needle, the sewing hanger, needle,
the needle and the coat hanger.
Yeah. And then he still gets up. What's up? Like they don't show him limping. They show Jamie Lee Curtis fall down that staircase and she's limping. Michael Myers doesn't seem to limp. And also I don't, the fact that he's able to stab Bob and he's held, like, what's happening there? Like Bob's like his whole weight is being held up by that knife. I don't know, but
I guess like if you want to think like in terms of physics, depending upon how flat the blade is on one side, but almost you feel like the person would just kind of slide down and the knife would just go like got a big gash.
Right. But I think maybe because Carpenter did want it to be like, well, what is this guy? Is he a man? He did intend on that because in the end, he does become the boogeyman, because that's exactly what Donald Pleasance says to, Loomis says to her. She said it was the boogeyman. And he says, matter of fact, it was. So he has become the boogeyman at the end, unstoppable force.
Yeah, just like the little kid predicted. I mean, it's one thing, like, also you were talking about earlier about how people have kind of retconned how Michael's going after Laurie and that sort of thing, but he's also going after these little kids, like little kids that he sees at school and that sort of thing. So I feel like he's not exclusively going after Laurie and her friends, but
and he killed the mechanic because he needed to, because
he needed some gear.
Yeah, needed some clothes. Yeah. And also he broke it. Like, other thing about no money too, he broke into the hardware store to get knives. It's all, again, he doesn't have money. So,
and do they ever tell us if he killed anybody getting out of the insane asylum?
Oh, I don't know, but the fact is, it's not like he was alone when he broke out of the state asylum.
Oh, we see him. It's a bunch of maniacs stumbling
yeah,
around.
so I mean, maybe he didn't
like,
need to kill anyone because
did he instigate it, and everybody else just kind of happened to stumble through the open doors, or did he seize the opportunity when it emerged?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the mystery behind it. I love
my
the film.
assumption is that he broke out and basically just left the cage door open,
sure.
and so everybody else kind of wandered out like zombies.
Yeah,
that's how. But it's once again, it's an assumption. I'm just filling in the gaps with my own imagination.
Right. But yeah, because he could have hurt someone on the way out. They never describe it. But I think, I don't know, is it 4 people that were murdered in the first film? Because it's the
total.
It's
you got the 3
friends
teens,
and the mechanic,
and the sister at the beginning. So 5.
Oh, I forgot about the sister. Okay, so 5 people. He's got a body count of 5, but 4 that night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So small potatoes as far as serial killers go, but it just shows you don't need a massive body count. You don't need super exotic kills. Like the trend that I hated in the late 90s, where the slasher film came back with, hot teens for a while, and people were going to the theater to just see the exotic kills. And it was almost like a great guitar riff, like a cool, like rock and roll song. Like, oh, that person got like a screwdriver through the eye. Oh, and that person got thrown down, into a wood chipper and blah, blah, blah. But they were cheering for it. Whereas if you listen to the audio from audiences in the late 70s watching this, they're screaming in horror. And I think that's another thing that's been forgotten with a lot of subsequent movies, is people are excited to see Michael. He's the hero, and they wanted to see him just fuck people up. People who went and saw Halloween in 1978 were in abject terror about what he might do. And I think that's another thing that's been lost in subsequent sequels and adaptations.
Yeah, I agree. And also that the audiences were screaming really for Laurie to not go into that house. Like their screams and their scare, they wanted to take care of Laurie Strode. They wanted to make sure she didn't see the aftermath of her friend's murders. And they wanted to make sure she didn't get hurt. So, and the thing is, I know you mentioned the music earlier, and I didn't really talk to the fact of why much I loved it, but I love the fact that it builds and builds, and it has all those layers, and it gets really simple. But then also and
it's not just the theme. He's got a couple different tracks in there. People overlook the fact that he's got some variety in there.
So much, like when Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode, when Michael Myers comes into hallway, and then it goes ding 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 ding, and then it's that's a whole other. And when she's walking across the street, and then when she discovers the bodies and that whole sound, there's just so much different. The score is extraordinary in so many different parts. And it's funny, I used to have during the month of October, I would put the ringer on my phone. And I remember just like when I used to live in the Miracle Mile area, I remember walking and it came off, and I always jump when the phone rings. I love this song, but it's very chilling.
Yeah, it's up there with any score, maybe above any score you care to mention. I mean, Bernard Herrmann's score for Psycho, one of the all-time greats. The scores for Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist are some of the all-time greats. But it's probably the most instantly iconic and recognizable horror score ever composed by a human being.
I agree. It's one of the most iconic songs in history, of film history. And this movie is one of the most iconic films in history. I mean, it's a classic, and it holds up. Like you mentioned Salem Lot earlier, like you watch Salem Lot and you're like, and when you watch it again,
I revisited it a couple of nights ago in preparation for a different video, and I'm blown away. First and foremost, I was able to even get through it as a kid, because for a long time, nothing happens. And I don't know if I watched the truncated like European cut or the full 3-hour, like 2-episode miniseries as a kid, because I was just, once again, I was so little, I can't really remember. But the little horror scenes in there, I mean, because I remember my feelings as a little boy when the kid is watching, I'm blanking on the name of the main, but when the main vampires be getting staked, you see other vampires creeping up behind the kid who've been kind of like lying around on the ground. And that just really fucking me up as a kid. But yeah, it was not the same experience as going back and revisiting Halloween.
Oh, and this is the same.
And Tobe Hooper's another master, but he was not a master with Salem's Lot.
No, because I remember watching it, and right out of college, I rewatched Salem Lot. My friend was so horrified by it, was a kid, and he's like, "What the hell is this?" So
by age 12, I was at a slumber party, and I rented Salem's Lot for the whole group to watch that night, and they were all laughing at me like, "You're so stupid! You like this?" Like, so from like age 5 to age 12. It was like this giant chasm, and the movie just disintegrated into the ashes of time. So now people should just read, where is it? Salem's Lot right here. People should just read the book as well as the short story One for the Road from his collection Night Shift, because that ties directly into it. And it's a really good short story. So yeah, Salem's Lot endures, but sadly not the Toby Hooper. But speaking of movies that haven't necessarily endured, we're going to play a little game today where I want you to give us your full, honest appraisal, not with like, don't couch it or don't justify it or defend it. Just a pure, raw, mean and or enthusiastic number rating for every single movie in the Halloween franchise, just so we can see, you know, the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows and the peaks and valleys of this franchise. Now it's going strong for many, many decades, and will continue going strong at a minimum through 2022 when we get Halloween Ends. So 1 to 10, very first movie, Halloween. 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. You can't say anything's an 11. You can't say anything's just pure 1 to 10. No 9.5. Just
I'm saying, so I'm not even ranking them.
Not even ranking them. You're just going to give me a number grade, like you're a substitute teacher grading a quiz.
Okay, so 10's the best.
10's the best. So
okay, well 10.
All right.
I thought you were saying 1 as a ranking. I'm like 1, but no, 10, of course.
2.
8.5.
You can't, no halvesies. You got to go 8 or 9.
Okay, the 9.
All right, 9. That's a bold choice.
It is a bold choice. And I know that it's very controversial, but I love Halloween too.
Season of the Witch.
7.
I would give it probably maybe a lower number on objective terms, but I give it a high number for what it attempted to do. Because I do think if the Halloween franchise were a different movie, every movie, but just a killer, it would be like the greatest anthology horror series ever, but the experiment failed. And so we just have a lot of Michael Myers movies, but Return of Michael Myers.
Return of Michael Myers. I love that movie for what it is. The thumb going through the forehead. I mean, come on. You don't want me to have any commentary, right? So, sorry. 8. I know you're gonna say
wow.
Crazy.
The Revenge of Michael Myers.
I know. But okay. Oof. The Revenge of Michael Myers. Woof. 3.
Oh, okay. Curse. Curse of Michael Myers.
The Curse. God, this one's bad.
This is the Paul Rudd one, right?
Yeah.
He looks the exact same as he
Looks
does
the exact same. He did Clueless that year too. So he was in Clueless and in this movie. 4? I guess a 4.
And the very silly named H2O : 20 years later, however you want to describe it, I guess number 7, but anyway, H2O.
8.
Resurrection.
Woo! Resurrection. Oh God, Resurrection's so bad.
Let the dangertainment begin.
2.
And the second movie with the name Halloween, the Rob Zombie reboot from 2007.
Oh, so the first of Rob Zombie.
There's Halloween, and then there's Halloween 2007, and then there's Halloween 2018. They're all called Halloween, so you have to just specify. So the first Rob Zombie.
Well, it's called Rob Zombie's Halloween, I think. Well, I guess you could say John Carpenter's Halloween. 0.
Okay, what about his Halloween 2, not to be confused with Rick Rosenthal's Halloween 2?
I hated Rob Zombie's Halloween so much that I refused to see the second one. So I don't know if I can rate it. Yeah, that's the only film of any franchise I've ever loved where I refuse to see. And that's a big deal for coming from me, because I see every film and every franchise. I just hated Rob Zombie's movie so much.
I often say this, that your greatest strength, but occasionally one of your weaknesses is blind loyalty, whether it's to my podcast, which is not always good, or to a giant franchise.
Sure.
And I'm at the point now where there's probably less time in front of me than behind me. And so I'm like, I'm not going to waste time watching stupid movies that I'm not interested in, no matter how much I might love the franchise. And so even with something like Marvel, I've reached a point now where I'm like, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. I'm just going to watch the ones that are interesting to me, so on and so forth. But the fact that you skipped Halloween 2 from 2009 speaks volumes about your contempt for the first one.
It speaks volumes because, like I said, it is a weakness of mine, blind loyalty. But I also love it.
But it's
I'm
also
proud of
your
that.
greatest strength as well.
Right. I would say that as well. Something I'm proud about myself. But yeah, I don't think it's ever happened. I've never been in love with the franchise and refused to see, like, content's content. And I just refuse to see it.
After Halloween 2, we get the third movie by the name Halloween, the 2018 David Gordon Green sequel / reboot / whatever the fuck you want to call it. What number does that get?
I think it's an 8.
And your predictions, both number for Halloween Kills as well as box office, because Halloween 2018 made all the money that a movie can make. I mean, it was all my petty grievances aside, the movie really connected. Audiences just ate it up. It went in droves. It was everything you want. If you're a producer, Jason Blum, it's everything you want a horror movie to do. So what are your predictions for the sequel, both in terms of quality, but also just box office success?
I'm worried about, I think the quality will be, be a well-made movie, and I'm excited to see Jamie Lee Curtis back in action. I'm worried about the storyline, honestly. From the trailer, it seems like they're making very much leaning in the supernatural of, like, the more he kills, the more that's what he feeds off on. And I'm like, what's happening? So I don't know if I'm into that story. So I'm worried, but I'm going to see it. Cause I really, like I said, I gave it 8 to the last film. I really thought it was fantastic. So box office wise, I'm going to base this off of, let me see.
Now we are in your lane where you are an expert. So
well,
I almost feel like you should have a YouTube channel just making box office predictions and then having your aftermath video where you analyze.
Oh God, it'd be so embarrassing. I probably do so poorly.
But everybody likes to pretend like they're an expert, but people are experts in hindsight, but it's hard to make predictions.
Oh, yeah. Just so you know, I've never said I was an expert or anything close to it. You said that, I'm not.
Well, I feel like everybody thinks they're an expert on movies, but you work in marketing, and having movies actually make money is your area of expertise.
Right. So Halloween 2018 grossed, I think it was 33 million on its first day. The weekend was 76
total
million.
Gross of 255.
Yeah.
The net profit roughly in the ballpark of 128 million.
Yeah, but I would say opening weekend, I rather project that. So it made 76 million. That was pre-pandemic. I do think it's a similar audience like Venom.
Yeah.
Bloodthirsty
teens who just want to get out of the house.
Right. Risk adverse people that, like, would want to get out of the house. You're right. And are not worried about seeing
not risk averse, risk seeking. They don't give a damn. Risk averse, you stay home.
Yeah. I mean theater adverse.
Oh yeah.
Because that's probably the better term. So because Venom made 10 million more than our pre-pandemic film, and people are so, like, hungry for a horror film right now, I'm going to say that this one's going to make 10 million more. So if it made 76, I'm going to say 85 for the weekend.
I'd be really curious to see what kind of traffic the trailers have been generating, and when, like, let it burn and all that stuff. Because when I saw the trailer, it's like, I'm going to nope right out of this movie, but because I thought it just...
yeah, I mean, Venom wasn't for everybody either, but I do think the audience that saw Venom is probably very excited about seeing Halloween Kills. So I won't do as well as Venom did opening weekend, but I do think it could. I mean, if our Venom sequel could get 10 million more than pre-pandemic, I think this one could. I mean, it probably would be even bigger if we weren't in a pandemic, but I would say, so I'm saying 85, and it's probably insane.
We've seen a couple of movies recently that opened big, but it seems like the drop-offs are more severe than they were in a pre-pandemic climate. And so total box office numbers obviously are not what they were back in 2019, where we had 12 movies that grossed over $1 billion. So if in 2018, Halloween had a total worldwide gross of 255, where will Halloween Kills finally taper off?
Oof. Well, the last Halloween did really well internationally. It made almost 100 million.
Because I'm thinking of It Chapters 1 and 2, where It #1 did 700 worldwide or something insane, and then the sequel just fell off a cliff.
Yeah. I mean, it still didn't. I mean, this didn't make. I mean, I don't think it's even close to 700. The last one made 255. I don't know, we could say 200 total worldwide.
All right.
I think it'll make less, honestly.
In a few weeks'
because of the
time, I'm
pandemic.
gonna make just like little short video clips of just these predictions, and we'll do the before and after and compare
Oh
and
God!
contrast.
So I
and we'll
said
see.
85 opening weekend, 200 total. This is 85 domestic, and then 200 worldwide total.
Okay.
But I mean, listen, I'm nowhere near a box office expert.
So, final thoughts: Halloween, John Carpenter, etc. In this video, on a strong, positive, wonderful place, the kind of positivity that only Becky D'Anna can muster.
I think that this film is, like I said, a classic, and it's a stunning achievement. And there were so many, like, I don't think they set out to make this masterpiece. They obviously didn't, but they did. It's so, it endures. I've seen it, like I said, it's been out for 40, how many years now? 43?
Yeah.
And it's just extraordinary. It's still scary. The music works. It's atmospheric. The sound, the fact that the camera moves along and tells this amazing visual story. And then all the players behind it, like the Deborah Hill and John Carpenter and Dean Cundy and Tommy Lee Wallace and Nick Castle. And it's just such a wonderful film. And it's so wonderful to get into like the history of it if you have time to dig into that. It really changed my life, this film. I mean, it made me get into horror films. It's still my favorite one of all time. I think this is a movie that you could show somebody in 20 years and that they'll get it. They love it because everyone's imagination can conjure up stuff, I said, like far worse than what you could see. And the fact that there's not a lot of blood, I think makes it even more compelling. And it's all it's just so creepy and atmospheric and haunting. And I love it. And there's nothing like it.
Beautiful. Well, Becky D'Anna, let's not let it be another 18 months. Let's let it be like 18 days. And so we need to come up with more topics. Oh, very, very nice.
This is my husband got me this for Valentine's Day.
All right, time for a high kick. Show me your socks, because I know you got Michael Myers on your socks.
I don't know if I could do a high kick. Oh, and then I also have, I didn't tell you that I was Michael Myers for Halloween. This is like the mask. So this is like the real mask. I was Michael Myers for Halloween. That's the real mask for
what I should have had you do when we were ranking all the movies is I should have also had you rank the masks, which masks suck and which masks are great. Because I was watching this great there are two great documentaries I would recommend to people. They're both on YouTube. You can watch 25 Years of Terror, and then you can also watch the one I really like, The Shape Lives, 40 Years of Halloween. And in those docs, they go into all the behind the scenes chaos on H2O, on the design of the mask and the shape of the eyes.
That's interesting.
And how they're trying to make it look like the mask, but they wanted to go in a different direction, and they changed the mask halfway through the movie because they realized it wasn't working at all. And so anyway, the mask has never been better than in the first movie, but they keep fucking with it. But I should have had you rate all the different iterations of the mask from best to worst.
I'd have to do a little bit of research, but even if you go on Google, if you want to buy a Halloween mask, like a Michael Myers mask, if you go on like those Halloween websites, it'll be like 2018 movie, 2000, this, like there's like at least 6 different masks. If you want to be like, I want this mask.
It's like Iron Man in his suit. It's a little bit different every time out.
Yeah. So you can just decide, I want to have the mask in Halloween 4.
So it's originally just a William Shatner mask, but they widened the eyes and they kind of frizzed out the hair. What were the alterations that they made to the original mask? Yeah,
they painted it chalk white, and then and they also like took off the sideburns, and they widened the eye holes. And then it was also like, I think that it was actually a mold of William Shatner's face they took from a movie called Devil's Reign. And it's kind of doesn't look like him. It's like he was all blobby in that. And then after that, because they took that
Shatner's
mold,
had some puffier years.
I know he's a little puffy then, but because they made that mold of his face from that movie, they had a mold, so they were able to. Then great, let's use that mold for a Star Trek mask. It didn't look really nothing like him, but yeah, he painted over the eyebrows and he teased the hair. And there's some great side by sides of the Michael Myers mask and the Star Trek mask, the Captain Kirk mask. So it's cool to see that, because I don't think I've ever I think it was only recently where I got to see like a real mask and got to compare them, but it's pretty cool. And Tommy Lee Wallace is the one that did that.
Gotcha. Beautiful. Well, where can people find you online if they want to hear you opining on other movies, or if they just want to interact with you on social media?
Right. You can.
One of the things you do that I love as a guest is that whenever you're a guest on any podcast, you send out an email blast with the entire history of your podcast appearances. But it's like, yeah, I kind of wish every guest would do this, where you really go out like on a big, strong blast to remember, hey, I'm talking about this on this show, etc. And yeah,
I'm a little, I made it more streamlined because I have all my podcast appearances on my website now, which is BeckyD'Anna.com. So if you ever want to see, I made my 50th podcast appearance a few months ago. This will be my 51st.
Very nice.
Which is exciting when you make this a podcast as well. So all of those are on my website. So if you want to hear me talk about Star Trek or Ingmar Bergman, I've done like over 15 Ingmar Bergman episodes. We have a lot of sci-fi. We had a really great Twilight Zone episode for Wrong Rail we did, where we just did the best of Twilight Zones. It's a great to listen to it this month in October. But anyway, I have that. And also, if you ever want to see any of my top 10 best film of the year lists, they're all on my website as well. So that's a great place to go if you want to learn anything about me. There's an about page, anything like that. And then additionally, I'm on Twitter all the time. My handle is Hollywood Minotaur, and that's spelled Hwood Minotaur. But what I was saying in my email blast, now I just say, if you want to see past appearances, you go to this
link to my website. Gotcha.
Link. So it's much smaller email now, but now you can click on a link and get everything instead of like, here's 4 pages of every link. But it's nice that you can go to all those and the links all work. But yeah, if you want to talk to me about Ingmar Bergman or Star Trek or Terminator, or just how much you love film, or Michael Myers, I love him. He's my favorite character. We didn't even talk about I don't know how you could compete against Jason or
All right. Well, this is a way of bringing it in for to spike the football hypothetical scenario. I guess if it's a Royal Rumble, you have a wrestling ring, they're all in there, and you've got Jason, you got Freddy, you got Michael Myers, you've got Pinhead. Who else should we throw in there? Norman Bates. Who are the other iconic loonies over the years? What's the name of the Santa from Silent Night, Deadly Night? I just put Michael Myers in the first movie. He's just a guy with a knife. It's like,
what's the name of the guy from The Exorcist? I mean the demon. I can't remember the demon from The Exorcist.
Oh, there's a specific name, but I don't even know.
Oh my God. It's not like Captain Howdy. That's like,
and you can put Damien in there if you want, put anybody in there, put actually Rosemary's actual baby in there in the crib.
Adrian.
Yeah. Adrian. Absolutely. But my money would be Pinhead fucking them all up. Just a bunch of chains would come in and rip them all to pieces. But I guess if you remove Pinhead, Michael Myers and Jason, now it's like a dead heat because they're basically the same guy, just with a different mask. They're big and and they stumble around. Jason in the first one versus Michael in the first. Michael fucks him because Jason in the first one's just a little kid. He's a little lake boy, and so he would get eviscerated by Michael.
I agree. Yeah, and Michael always catches up to you. And then also Freddy Krueger, he only could get you in your dreams. But if you think
and does Michael even have dreams?
I don't know. He probably has messed up dreams because he's so messed up. But I don't know. I mean, if you think about who can get you, Michael Myers only can come after you once a year on Halloween.
He just chooses. I think he can.
He can get you, but he only chooses to unleash hell on Halloween. Freddy Krueger, if you dream every night, that's 365 days that Freddy Krueger can get you. And then Jason's Friday the 13th, so it's only a handful of days a year. But more.
And he's kind of drawn to one location. Just stay away from that lake. You're fine.
Yeah.
I guess the same with Michael. Stay away from Haddonfield. You're fine.
That's the good thing about retconning the Halloween movies now is that Michael Myers, like it used to be, as long as you're not related and you're not in the way of his relatives, you might be okay. But now if he's just after whoever, like he was in the first film, then he can come after anybody. So
yeah. Well, for Jamie Lee Curtis, who I'm a lifelong fan of ever since I saw her in Trading Places as a little kid. I'm a colossal Jamie Lee Curtis fan. Love her in True Lies. Love her in a bunch of things.
Yes.
But I love seeing her at this stage in her career, getting these massive paydays, staying in the public eye, doing all these fucking crazy TV shows. I mean, right now, it's a very good time to be in the Jamie Lee Curtis business. So I will never begrudge somebody who's found a way to make a living and get a nice paycheck. So even if I couldn't care less about Halloween Kills, Team Jamie Lee Curtis all the way, thrilled for her. And so, more power to her.
It's all movies back. And I'm also wearing a Halloween 1978 shirt.
All right. You just lowered the camera. Socks time. Got it.
Oh no, I can't do it. I don't even know how I do that. There's
Get it up there.
Right.
Yeah, baby.
You can't see them until I'm out of it. I have Halloween 2 socks. I sent a picture to Jamie and he can show them.
Those are the first socks ever shown on this YouTube.
But all you saw was black and orange because I can't do the side. I don't know how I would even do that.
I'll cut to a still just to
okay, great. Yeah. But I'm representing Halloween 1 and 2.
Beautiful. Well, Becky, this has been a thrill and a half. And we've talked on Twitter throughout the pandemic a million times. We haven't spoken face to face or by voice in a year and a half either. So once again, whether it's on a podcast or just as friends, let's not let it be such a giant interim.
I can't believe it's been that long.
In the future, that was a big oversight on our part.
Yeah, and then go see, Ghostbusters Afterlife. It killed it. They showed a screening of it at New York Comic Con this weekend.
People lost their shit. Yeah,
they lost it, and they also showed it at Cine Europe a week ago, and they showed it at CinemaCon. And so critics have seen it. Some critics have seen it multiple times.
And the spoilers are already out there. So if you're planning on seeing it, be careful because the internet is overflowing. I've already seen the full plot summary. So
oh no, I legit cried at the end. It's a wonderful movie. I love it so much. And I also I mentioned a Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. I actually really love that movie too.
Is that animated or live action?
It's live action. It's great. It's a prequel to all the games. It's all these characters develop. It's really, really cool. The production design is awesome.
And sell it to Netflix, or what are y'all doing with it? Did y'all sell it to Netflix, or is it getting a theatrical release?
Theatrical release, November 24th.
Gotcha. Because I know they just did their Resident Evil animated series or a mini series, and so I didn't know if they were kind of going all in on the Resident Evil business or not.
This movie's great. I mean, I really enjoy the acting is great. Like I said, it looks great. The production design, the music, they do some really clever stuff with music that just floored me. I really enjoyed that movie. And then we got Spider-Man No Way Home, December 17th. So we have 3 big films that hopefully are more theater adverse. I mean, that has the audience that are less theater adverse will go. Yeah,
it's funny. The word averse. I remember. Don't forget. I was talking about averse and the word aversion. I said just out loud. Like when I was like 18, when I said this, like what? Define the word aversion. And my little brother who's 6, who's so innocent, naive, he says, "I'm a virgin."
Oh no!
Like, yes, you are. That's actually a great play on words, and you don't even realize it. But anyway. Shout out to my little bro who did not know what we were talking about.
Yeah. Oh, and shout out to USC, which a lot of the people that made Halloween went to USC, just like me. So
gotcha. Yeah, John Carpenter, late 60s, early 70s, when he was talking about how his guest lecturers at USC back in the day, and this obviously cannot be replicated, but he says he had seminars and classes taught by Orson Welles, John Ford, Alfred Hitchcock, Roman Polanski, Michelangelo Antonioni. I mean, can you imagine being in class like, oh, today the master of suspense is going to give us a lecture? It's like, Jesus fucking Christ. So yeah, he went to USC at a very good time.
Yeah. Tommy Lee Wallace was his high school classmate, went to him with USC, and then they met Nick Castle, and the 3 of them together, all Trojans, so fight on.
Absolutely. Well, we hope y'all have enjoyed this episode. Please remember to leave rating, review, subscribe, like whatever platform you're listening to it on. Go on YouTube first, but then it'll be on Apple Podcasts a little bit later. And yeah, can't thank enough for listening. And we just hope we've encouraged some of you to go back and check out the original. If it's been a while, you will be blown away all over again. There are some horror movies that age like yogurt, and there are others that age like a fine wine. And this is definitely one of the latter. So thanks again for listening. We greatly appreciate it. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.